Good afternoon and welcome everyone to this amazing Saturday, sunny, hot, at least in the near Baltimore area here. So we welcome everyone to this amazing online meeting, contemplating the warmth and not only outside but in our hearts as well as we come together once more to deliver message, to connect with one another, to stop, give ourselves a break of all that is going on in our lives, and to truly give emphasis, revisit, learn, share a little bit of ourselves with this environment of love that we create here online and that we bring ultimately to our homes as well. We would like to welcome everyone following us now live, as well as those who will be following us in the future as well. Tonight, we have a really interesting message that will be broadcast here with Kirsten, where she will be speaking about Jesus and rest. You can follow us online through YouTube, or you can actually follow us from through Facebook. If you go to our webpage, you'll be able to see the links that you can follow us accordingly if you don't know how to access it in the future as well, because it will be recorded, will be available to you as well. Before we pass the word to Kirsten, I would like to do, as we usually do, to acclimate ourselves even more to this amazing moment, which is to read a passage of the book Happy Life. Unfortunately, fortunately, I still have the old version here. This is actually chapter 52. In this version, old version is page 65. And Joanna de Angelis in this book says, in this passage says, when one really forgives, one forgets the evil received. If you forgive, but continue referring to the event, you are giving life to it. Work on the feelings of personal inferiority that suffering has fixed in your memory, and be thankful for the opportunity to forgive. How could you evolve without tests that result in more improvement? The forgiveness that you now give will be your protector tomorrow when you yourself need another's benevolence and forgiveness. Forgiving is always better for the ones who practice it. Always act this way and you will live. So, with this message in mind, then, we would like to invite everyone to find a comfortable but yet straight position where you can really connect with the message, with the words that we're going to be saying, and pray with us together, heart and mind, so we can elevate our thoughts in such a way that we will be able to emanate good vibrations to one another here online, and to all of those who will connect with us in the future as well. We may doubt, but it truly happens. If our intention is right, this will really change different minds. It will reach different minds and help others as well, even in the future. So with this idea in mind of forgiveness, of contemplating life, we ask our dear Creator to guide us all tonight in this amazing moment that we put it together. We allowed ourselves to stop. We did everything that we could to take a break from our daily difficulties, the distractions, everything that have been put forth before us. And we made a decision to be together tonight. We are thankful, dear Lord, for this amazing opportunity to have one another, to have minds like us, seeking for something better than what we have been receiving. So tonight, we hope that each one of us can take and receive as much as possible from these teachings that we're about to receive. We ask that you guide each mind, each heart, especially our dear friend Kirsten, who will be conducting tonight's talk, this afternoon's and this evening's talk. But before we pass the word to our dear friend, we would like to invite everyone for a moment of silence. It doesn't have to be that long, to send our vibrations to our brothers and sisters those who may be in need, those who may cross our hearts and our minds. This way, we would like to give ourselves a moment of silence so we can all pray and send our good vibrations to those who are in need. May your guidance, protection, and permission be with us as we open this amazing moment on the web, but with our hearts connected evermore. And so be it. So, as we said before, this is a moment that we pass the word to Kirsten so she can continue to discuss these amazing chapters of this amazing book called Jesus in Our Days by the Spirit Joanna de Angelis. And tonight we will be hearing about Jesus and rest. So, Kirsten, please take it away.
Thanks so much, Leo. Good evening, everyone, friends on the web and everyone else. As you can see, talking of rest, and we'll be talking about vacation. I'm on a vacation of my own. As you can see, I'm in the tropics. Not really. So what we wanted to talk about Jesus and rest. And we can't talk about rest without talking about vacation. Or if you're from Europe, holiday, as they call it. We can remember the first time we felt what Joanna refers to in this particular chapter, chapter 16. And let us illustrate this story for you to give you some ideas, to contextualize it, to frame it as a point of reference. Some of you may be able to relate, some not, but hopefully it'll make sense in the end. And pardon me for sharing a personal anecdote, but the purpose is to tie in together what Joanna talks about. So in my early 20s, I remember going on a vacation for the first time. As an adult, you go on vacations more or less when you're a kid, but it's different, as you know, when you're an adult. So I went away with a few friends, and we went away to the beach for about a week or so, give or take. And I remember upon my return commenting to one of my friend's mothers how exhausted I was. And she turned to me and said, "Oh, that's just how it is, you go away and you have so much fun and you come back exhausted that you need to rest from your own vacation." And I remember thinking how odd that was, but yet that similar theme seems to have continued for the most part, here and there. Now, we honestly can say that oftentimes our vacation tends to be, and if not always, is related to spiritual activities, as traveling, so it's actually very productive. However, if we stop to think a little bit about our own personal experiences with vacationing and taking a rest, sometimes those moments really actually drain us more if we really pay attention to it. Not always. Perhaps we've nailed this down pat and we truly know what it is to make time for ourselves, to recharge and to reconnect. But there seems to be, in our culture, at least here in the US, I can't speak of any other countries, this is where I've lived and grew up, that it's normal to take a vacation and be super busy on vacation and go jet skiing and doing this, that, and the third, and coming back exhausted. Maybe not always, but sometimes. And so Joanna kind of touches on this, and we're going to talk about this. And it definitely is something that is very much innate in all of us. But to quote one of my favorite authors, Dr. Brené Brown, she says, "It takes courage to say yes to rest and play in a culture where exhaustion is seen as a status symbol. So although we're talking about vacation and we've mentioned sort of the pitfalls or the downfalls and how our society kind of accepts this paradox of let's take a vacation, I'm exhausted, I need vacation for my vacation. At the same time, we live in a society that it's quite normal and perhaps even applauded for us to quote unquote work ourselves to death. And that's where there needs to be a paradigm shift in our thinking so that each one of us as a humanity can begin to change this shift. Because if we look at some of the number one killers in the United States, at least, coronary artery disease, which is a disease of the heart, strokes, amongst other things. And a lot of these things are caused by diet, poor lifestyle, high stress, because we tend to throw ourselves into work and forget about our family life, forget about taking care of ourselves. And it's actually so important for us to take care of ourselves. It is detrimental to our health when we don't. But unfortunately, we live in this society where it's applauded when you give your all to work at the expense of your health, family life, and happiness. So something else we'll kind of touch on today too. But we wanted to bring some basics of Spiritism to remind us that in the part 3 of the Spirits book, the moral laws, there's one particular law called the law of labor. It has it's a large section. You can go ahead and I recommend you read it more in detail. We just brought one particular question and answer, number 682, where Kardec asked the spirits, since rest is needed after labor, isn't rest therefore a law of nature? So remember, third part of the Spirits book talks about all the different laws, the natural laws that exist. So he asked, well, if the law of labor is a law of nature, isn't the law of rest as well? And the spirits say, without a doubt, rest serves to restore the strength of the body and is also needed to give a little more freedom to the intelligence, which must raise itself above matter. This is quite thought-provoking if you think about it, because how much time during the day do we have for our imagination or to really build upon our intelligence? Of course, when we're at work, we have trainings or, we're always learning new things. But oftentimes there aren't necessarily things that we would voluntarily do. They're often things that professionally we just have to do. And so we do them and we get on with our lives. But if we were left to our own devices and had the opportunity to really seek out things, utilize our imagination and our abilities to really educate ourselves, that's what they're referring to here as well, and what we'll go into as well, that our moments of rest, most of us imagine being on, we tried to find a beach, but we find a beach, being on a beach, looking at this beautiful sky, and there's nothing wrong with that. We should find time to recharge in whatever way that recharges us. But it's also important for us to find time to enlighten ourselves. So we'll get into that in a second as well. So Merriam-Webster defines rest as the ceasing of work or movement in order to relax, refresh oneself, or recover one's strength. It's an instant or period of relaxing or ceasing to engage in strenuous or stressful activity. Let's dive right into what Joanna de Angelis starts out with this chapter. So as you can see, these are some beautiful photos that someone took on a lovely vacation they had. And Joanna starts off with reminding us that with human beings, there's an immense, ever-present desire to rest, to unwind, to stop working, to recharge one's energies. It's completely normal. It's a part of the law of nature. It's a part of what should be in our day-to-day repertoire of how we, take care of ourselves. Recently we talked about having a self-care plan. In your self-care plan, whether it's eating healthy, meditating, yoga, participating in your spiritist center, reading books that are uplifting, things of that nature. Included in there should be a time to rest mixed in with that. Sometimes our rest and recharge is finding 10, 15 minutes a day to meditate, find some time by ourselves, to go for a walk in nature, to connect and recharge. Rest doesn't always have to mean sitting on a beach, but we'll get into that. Joanna goes on to say that yearly vacation plans ensue with trips, sports, and entertainment. Those who live in the country want to go to the city, and those who work in the mountains want to go to the beach, and those who live in the tropics long for the cold, and vice versa. Grass is always greener, basically. And she says a travel fever has a strong grip on people. And those who do not get to travel often feel diminished, marginalized, lacking social status. Or in more modern terms, we say FOMO. If you don't know what FOMO means, you probably don't have a teenager in your house. FOMO is fear of missing out. FOMO. And it's a very real phenomenon that we see other people on social media, they're traveling, they're doing things, or our friends are talking about, hey, let's go there, let's go here, let's go to this place or that place. We don't want to miss out. FOMO, we have this fear of missing out on something fantastic, something amazing. It's a part of who we are as a culture, as a people. But let's think about that. Let's dive more into that. Joanna says that many people work at exhausting jobs throughout the year in order to save money to fulfill their dream of taking a vacation. Let's be honest, folks. How many of us will work overtime hours, or how many have us done this in the past, where we worked overtime or waited till we received a bonus at a particular time so we can take a particular trip? We wait to that point in the year. We're not saying there's anything wrong with that, but let's just reflect on it. Let's make an observation of the ways in which we're living our lives. She goes on to say that they toil until they are worn out. They go in debt and pay exorbitant, crippling interest later so they can enjoy today. They talk about how easy it is to travel and its advantages, but it's all just words. It's a type of fad. But with rare exceptions, trips are painful and outings are exhausting. There's precious little rest and a lot of inconvenience. As the days pass, the initial happiness and enthusiasm wither eventually and are replaced by irregular sleep, bad moods, unending hours in crowded hotels with bad service and other drawbacks. Probably most of us aren't necessarily thinking about those things when we're enduring them or when we're experiencing them, unless you're a very awake person or very conscious of what's going on. But most of the time, but when we're nearing the end of our vacation or if we're coming back, we begin to feel some of that, either bad moods or because of your irregular sleep, you feel kind of off. And I've heard this time and time again through my own personal experience and talking to other people about needing that extra day to rest when you come back from your vacation. It's such a common thing. I've heard it many times, and it's just accepted. It's what we do. Attractive advertisements paint a rosy picture, but the reality is very different. And this is the interesting thing. So here we have this beautiful photo of this young couple. Nothing wrong with it. Beautiful, right? But we never know the behind the scenes of what's really put into that moment to take that picture together. So when we showed this picture earlier of this gentleman, as you can see here, he's looked like he's having a great time. You know, I mean, we're looking at that and we might feel envious, like, wow, I want to be there. But we don't know, once he got done snapping that photo, what was going on through his mind, what worries he was having. We don't know, because a picture paints this idea to us that something is magical, as Joanna calls it, this rosy picture. But the reality is very different if we're truly honest with ourselves. Again, rest is important. It's very important that we take time out of our day, out of the month, out of the year, to be with family, to explore, to do things we enjoy together, to create a sense of bonding and love and mutual respect. All important things. Right now, we're just at this stage in this talk and this conversation we're having together, just observing certain facts in life. And as you can see this meme, I'm so tired from my vacation. I need a vacation from my vacation. Come on, guys, you can't deny it. At least once in your life, you felt that. Joanna goes on to talk about, even if the usual problems do not occur, travelers, upon returning, compose themselves in order to impress those who did not go, and embellished stories flow from the smiling lips of the lucky ones who must now return to their toil to cover the expenses, becoming even more tired than before. This is so true, because how often are we on vacations or getting back off a vacation and putting together a collage of photos for our Facebook or our Instagram page and wanting to just show off this beautiful experience we just had, painting this rosy picture, as Joanna calls it, this perfection, when probably it's not quite how it was. And hopefully we can remind ourselves that social media is, most of us, we put the best out there that we can. It's not necessarily the reality of life, the reality of people's situations. And I heard a story that someone shared, Rosando Klinge from Brazil. He shared this story of a friend of his who had gotten married and was on his honeymoon. And his friend was posting all these photos of this romantic evening with his wife and his beautiful wife and the candles and all this stuff, and posting it all over social media. So Rosandro said he inboxed him privately and said, "Man, if I were you and I had a beautiful wife like that," mind you, Rosandro is married, at least now he has a beautiful wife. But if I had a beautiful wife like that, I wouldn't be on my cell phone taking photos. I'd be in the moment, present with her, enjoying. But that's the problem that we have. We sit at our breakfast tables, we're on our cell phones, we're distracted, we're on vacation, on the beach, and what are we doing? We're Snapchatting. We're on Instagram because we want to share with the world, of course, our happiness. We're enjoying ourselves. Or we look at the most perfect picture and we have to take a photo of it. There even was some studies or some research done on the brain and people's experience. And when we're having an experience and we go to grab our cell phone to film it, we're not looking at the actual experience. We're actually looking at the video. So the effect that's actually having on us is not the same if we were to just put down our phone and just experience what's there. But we have such this tendency to want to project and share, what we're enjoying with others, but we're doing ourselves a bit of a disservice because we're not being present. We're doing ourselves a disservice when we're with friends or family, loved ones, people we care about or want to have an experience with, by going on our phone and taking lots of photos. That's not to say that taking photos is wrong and that taking videos is wrong. No, absolutely not. But there's a time and a place for that we should set aside and say, okay, this first few moments or at this time we're going to take family photos, but while we're watching this concert or we're surfing or whatever it is that we're doing, or we're on the beach, boardwalk, or what have you, I'm enjoying that moment fully. Something for us to think about. Joanna goes on to say that every change of activity fosters the renewal of one's energies and provides new motivation. A good balance of endeavors defines what options are available as alternatives for well-being. I'm sorry. A good balance of endeavors defines what options, my computer's going crazy, I apologize, what options are available as alternatives for well-being. Let's think about that. Every moment that we experience is an opportunity for us to utilize that for our benefit. And we have some folks in the chat sharing, as Regina in the chat, sharing vacation photos, wish I could be here. So yeah, sometimes we have that envy. We look at other people's photos, they, oh man, I wish I could be there. Sometimes we don't even mean any harm by it. But it's almost a human nature to see something beautiful and want to be there. And the travel agency, if you look at the research, they're utilizing that research that exists out there to advertise to people, to paint the most beautiful photos, the most beautiful videos. There are people who specialize in making videos just for vacation rentals, if you will. We actually had a friend from high school that was part of his job. It's what he did. He compiled these beautiful sort of vacation trailers, if you will, to make it seem like this amazing, wonderful opportunity you just had to have in your life. When a lot of that is just lights, camera, just as a sound is. It's just for show. Anyone who's been on enough trips and had enough vacations will tell you, unless they're a rarity and exception, that we do tend to come back more tired. So something for us to think about. Let's go on. And as I believe this is, I forget this character's name from the movie. I think this is, I forget his name. I know it's Will Ferrell's the actor, but he says that all that vacation time made me tired. I'm taking another rest day. It's so true. It's what we do. Joanna goes on to say, of course, people need vacations, rest, and entertainment, which provide them with joy and renewal to continue their work. However, exciting, exorbitant plans, continuous activity, and preset schedules are unnecessary and a waste of energy. When we read this, we couldn't help think about how often we have friends who travel to different countries and, you know, you get those vacation package deals and you preset your whole schedule that you're going to do this and this and this on this day and this and this and this. And you end up leaving very little room to just relax, enjoy the island or the vacation itself, get some rest. It's very uncommon. And even recently, I believe my daughter had this experience. Again, forgive me for using a personal anecdote, but I feel it is relevant. She, a few months ago or a month or so ago, she went on a trip with her friends to the beach, and she came back exhausted. That I think she slept for a few days, and she said that, you know, her experience was that they were getting up early to take advantage of being where they were, being at the beach, and staying up late, you know, talking, having fun with friends, and you end up not really getting to rest and rejuvenate yourself. Something for us to think about. Joanna goes on to touch on something very interesting as well. She says, preoccupation with clothes, appearance, the torment of shopping for novelties and souvenirs wear on the nervous system, which falters, causing irritability and a bad mood. Now, for all those people out there, for all those partners or husbands or wives that don't like it when their other partners spend money, this is probably the highlight of the chapter for you. Because Joanna really is alluding here that, you know, when we travel, we love to get like those little trinkets. You know, who doesn't? They're adorable. You know, the magnets that really serve little to no purpose, but going on our refrigerator and just proving to all those who come to visit us all the locations we've been. And of course, it's good for commerce and things and businesses and things of that nature. But Joanna gives us a sneak peek into how this actually affects us on a physical level, and of course an emotional level, because our central nervous system inevitably is directly connected to how we're feeling, our moods. It's something for us to think about. When we're going on vacation, we tend to spend a lot of money, perhaps focusing on maybe shopping for novelties rather than just enjoying being in the presence of loved ones. And this is not an attempt, and we don't believe Joanna's telling us to feel bad about ourselves or to feel bad at the experiences that we've had or that we've been bad in the past. No, I mean, life is all about living and learning and experiencing and going through whatever it is that you're going through. Live and learn, and let's move on. But let us take this opportunity that when we're with our loved ones, or when we're with a loved one, or clearly if we're vacationing with someone, it's clearly someone that I hope that we like. Let's make memories with them and be present in that moment. You know, there's a reason why this idea of being in the moment, being present, I'm forgetting the actual term that became popular now in the last 5 to 10 years. If someone's in the chat can remind me of what that term is, just, being present, being in the present moment instead of being distracted. We needed to bring this idea back because it's so easy to get distracted with so much modern technology, with so much distraction out there in the world. We turn on cable TV and you put on cartoons for your kids, you're bombarded with commercials about the greatest, latest new toys. Whether not even cable TV anymore, if you go on YouTube and you're watching cartoons, your kid's bombarded by, you have to have this latest, coolest, greatest thing. If not, you feel FOMO. You feel like, if I don't have that, I'm going to miss out on it. Or if I don't go to this place with my kids, I'm not giving them the best childhood ever. When in reality, kids, much like adults, we just want to experience love and be loved and joy and happiness and be together with family. It's not about the physical things. It never is. Those are just sometimes the things that we fill up the space with, sometimes out of guilt, because we work so hard, maybe we don't have enough time for our children or spouses or our mates. And again, this is not to be taken directly. We don't want anyone to feel like, well, they're a bad person. It's not about that. This is about personal observation. It's not about passing judgment. Joanna's all about having self-compassion, about showing yourself grace, but also looking at yourself very objectively and honestly and saying, okay, how do I feel about these experiences? What do I experience? What are my behaviors when I'm vacationing? Mindfulness. Thank you, Regina. Mindfulness. It seems so simple, but it's become popular. Thank God, at least for a certain group of people. But it's so easy to get away from that because, as Regina is sharing, human beings, not human doers. And thank you, Paula Schmidt, who's, I guess it's a book, Be Here Now by Richard Alpert, aka Ram Dass. Yeah. So thank you for all who are sharing comments in the chat. Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's so much we could share on this topic. But of course, as usual in these chapters, we always have to reflect on Jesus, on the great master, our model and guide. She says, Jesus said that the Father works even today, and that he, Jesus, works also. Labor is a law of life, as is rest. However, rest does not mean idleness or chasing after pointless things. Rest means inner tranquility, recovery of one's strength, optimism, and feeling good about life. providing oneself with relaxation, pleasant reading, healthy sports, spending time with experienced, jovial, happy persons in quietude, and traveling serenely to discover other places, customs, and people without haste. All these are an effective means for a well utilized rest. So she gives us a great template of what a restful break, a restful vacation should look like, can look like, and what will ultimately benefit our own selves. How many times do we say, oh, I just need a vacation? Like, this work is overwhelming. I need a vacation. And then, we end up taking a vacation. We're so exhausted when we get back. But how many times do we say, you know what? At the end of the day, I'm going to take some time, sit on my back deck, on my porch, drink some tea or coffee or what have you, sit and play with my dog, be present in that moment, or take some time out just for you to do something, to read something that's uplifting, or partake in something that's a healthy sport or exercise, or just spending time with people that are happy and that are positive. Or if we are vacationing, or if we do choose to travel, do so with an intent and purpose to grow, to learn, to have positive experiences, and not just to waste the day away. But let's make use of whatever time we have. Let it be beneficial. Let us take that time to bond with family and friends and to understand the rich history around us. And we learn this from other friends who would travel. And wherever they would travel to, they would read up on the history of that particular city or town or neighborhood to understand its richness and its beauty. So when you go, you're fully sort of immersing yourself in all the great things, because every town and city and culture brings with it its own level of richness. Of course, there's always aspects that are less desirable, of course, but there's always more positive uh, sides to it, if you will. So we were finding that this chapter was a great reminder of how to rest. Resting is just often, maybe perhaps even for ourselves, we thought, laying in bed and vegging out on Netflix. And you do that for about an hour and you walk away just as restless and irritable as you were an hour ago. Unless maybe you're watching something that's extremely uplifting and thought-provoking. If you're binge watching something and it's not very thought-provoking, it's just sort of like numbing your mind out, it probably wasn't that the best use of your time. And we could reevaluate and give it a try. We're not saying that, sitting out and sometimes you just need to veg out and just, watch something funny or what have you. But let's try to be more mindful in the ways in which we take holiday or vacations. And let's not wait for that one time a year where we manage to put all our monies together. But let's make it, as Joanna is encouraging us, a daily practice. And we'll get into that in a second. Where we're taking time out to rest and recharge. If not, we will inevitably get burned out, become overwhelmed, reach our breaking point. And many of us express that in different ways. We can become irritable, we could become anxious, or feel any variety of other different negative emotions, which are nothing else than just indicators for us. Like, when you set the alarm when you're cooking something in your oven and it's going off and it's super annoying, but it's there to tell you, like, hey, if you don't, check on this, it's going to burn. So it's the same with our emotions. They're indicators, they're guides to let us know where we're at on this journey. They're not meant to be bad emotions and good emotions, but just indicators of where we're at. So if we're feeling something, let's observe it, let's acknowledge it, and see what it has to teach us, learn and grow from it, and see how we can be better because of it. She goes on to say, likewise, meditating in one's own home, praying, seeking to attune oneself with the founts of superior thought, fraternizing with sufferers, consoling and assisting them, being at peace, listening to melodies of deep emotional content, all these are invaluable resources and rest techniques that can be used anywhere, whenever possible. Praying, seeking attunement, helping those that are suffering, consoling and assisting them, being at peace, listening to melodies, music that move us deeply. For everyone, it's different. Most of the day today, we are listening to Clair de Lune by Debussy. It's beautiful, and you can find it anywhere. It's on YouTube, and it's just everywhere. You can stream it. It's such a moving song that for us is deeply rooted in all things that are good, positive, and spiritual and uplifting. Sometimes we need to do a little bit of a self-discovery to figure out what those things are. What things really move us? What kind of music really moves us? Maybe we could explore some classical music a little bit more. Or sometimes we just forget about it. And recently we were in a workshop and where Fred Govea was presenting, was at the Family Spiritist Retreat. And he gave this beautiful presentation, and it was surrounded by music and meditation. And it just reminded us of how powerful a good song can be, how it can uplift us, transport us into our highest self, out of the pit that we were in, or maybe not even a pit, just our, normal existence. And then we're reminded that we have this capability to go in and up, or up and in, however you want to say it. And then we don't need to be people who have all these resources, to, go on vacation on these beautiful islands. We don't need to do those things. If we could simply learn, teach ourselves how to enjoy and truly be grateful for sitting outside at night, looking at the stars, just breathing in that moment and appreciating it for what it is. But oftentimes it takes a great deal of suffering in our personal lives for us to reach that point, for us to really be able to enjoy the smallest things in life, the things that perhaps others take for granted. Never forget, and I believe we shared the story before, of 20 years ago, I met this gentleman. I was at a community college, fresh out of high school, and he was much older. He must have, I don't know, he could have been in his 30s or 40s. And, there was a large line of us waiting to see an academic advisor, and it seemed like forever. So somehow we struck up a conversation, and this gentleman kind of just started to tell me some deep parts of his life story, at least in his recent years. And he shared that he was divorced, his wife and him had separated, and he barely saw his 2 children, and he missed his old life. And I've never forgotten the look in his eye, but also the vulnerability and the honesty in which he shared that if he could go back, he wouldn't take a minute for granted. He would be willing to live in a hut with his wife and kids if it just meant he'd had his family back. Before he got this big, beautiful house, they took these beautiful vacations, they had all these resources. And then for many different reasons that won't even matter enough to go into today, he had not been grateful for those things. And here he found himself, somewhat almost middle-aged, having to restart his life from scratch. And now hindsight, as we say, is 20/20 vision. So we don't want for us or any of you to have to reach that point in life where we lose it all to really appreciate the smallest things in life. And to know that in the quiet of our own home, we can utilize some of these rest techniques, as Joanna refers to. Prayer, meditation, listening to uplifting music, helping a friend. We're in this era of the pandemic. And how often are we just reaching out to a friend just to say hello, just to check on them? Say, hey, how are you doing? How can I best support you during this hard time? We don't need to remove roadblocks for people. We don't need to go and save the day. Because oftentimes people need to learn the lessons that they need to learn. But to share solidarity makes us feel less alone. And it makes our suffering bearable. When we know that, hey, I'm not alone in this world. That, yeah, I'm going through a hardship, but there are other people out there who are also going through similar things and that are encouraging you or me or each other to keep going. Some of the last thoughts of this chapter, Joanna gives us some recommendations. She says, just go into your room, shut the door, talk to God. As Jesus taught regarding prayer, the room is your inner world, and the door is the access to the outside. In that silent place, you will hear God. In your physical and mental health program, include rest as a necessary priority. We talked about that, I believe it was last Monday, I believe it was. We talked about this subject of loving yourself more. And you can go on Pinterest or just Google it. They have templates for self-care plans. So you actually set out goals and a plan for yourself to take care of yourself. It actually makes life so much more easier, and you live life much more mindfully when you set out to say, okay, I'm going to take care of my health in these different ways. Spiritually, I'm going to read these uplifting books. I'm going to pray daily, or at X time, I'm going to meditate. And for my physical body, I'm going to attempt to eat healthier, implement more vegetables. I'm going to drink more water and cut out the caffeine and sodas and juices and all those drinks with all those additives and stuff, because just regular water is actually pretty awesome. And so you set out goals for yourself, things that you can work on to nourish yourself. She goes on to say, but be mindful of what you opt for as a means of rest. Let's utilize our time wisely. We all only have 24 hours in a day. Every person on this earth, to the most successful, to the least successful, we all have 24 hours in a day, 7 days a week. It's not about this person has more time. It's about how we're utilizing the time that we are given and that we have. So let's be mindful and purposeful in the ways that we rest. Use the occasion to discover yourself, to know yourself better, and to identify what is actually indispensable to you, carefully selecting what you really need for a healthy life, abandoning or giving less importance to all else. it seems like we're always talking about self-discovery. It seems almost at times abstract, not tangible. But here we have a perfect technique, opportunity, suggestion, if you will, to spend time with yourself. Journaling is great in that respect. Write down how you experienced your day, what emotions showed up, what parts of you showed up that day. I'm going to grab a book that I didn't mean to grab. Yep, right there. Thank you. That there is a type of therapy or psychotherapy that's called IFS, or otherwise known as internal family systems. And I've mentioned this before, and it was created by Dr. Richard Schwartz. And it's fairly new. And when I say new, I say maybe in the last 5, 10, 15 years, give or take a few years. And there are great workbooks out there. And to summarize, basically, in a nutshell, what it is, it's just talking about getting to know the different parts of yourself. So, for instance, have you ever been, perfect example. Have you ever, when you were younger, many moons ago, have you ever had an experience where you saw a close friend or family member that achieved a certain goal or managed to find themselves in a very happy situation? At least it appeared that way on the outside. And you were happy for them. But there was this other part of you that felt kind of jealous or saddened because you wanted that to be you, or you want to be there. You want to have achieved those goals, but you're not. But it's like this, it seems conflicting because no, wait, there's a part of me that feels happy and I'm happy for that person, but there's another part that shows up. And sometimes there's multiple parts. We're just sharing this as another way to dive in deep into our own emotions, into our own psyche. There are books like this that you can get off Amazon. This is called Self Therapy. This is actually by Dr. J. Early, and it uses internal family systems as a way of self-discovery. There's so many things that are free out there on Pinterest, on Google. There are journal prompts, ways that we really have no excuse because the resources are out there for all of us. And as she ends this chapter, she says, yes, rest with spiritually uplifting activity. And that is the key to truly recharging ourselves, rebalancing, grounding ourselves, and reconnecting to our divine purpose. So a couple of take-home thoughts before we say goodnight. 4 thoughts. Embrace slowness. Like we shared earlier, we all have 24 hours in a day. That's all that we're all ever given. But take the time to enjoy your meal while you're eating it. Take the time to enjoy the company of the people that you're in. It has become a negative habit for many people, whether you're a spiritist director, spiritist worker, whether you're a clinician or you're a doctor or someone who has a high profile job, and it's important that you're always connected. But it's actually, if we look at the research that's out there, if we don't learn to create a balance in our lives, it is detrimental to our health. We need to set aside disciplined time, that this is a time for this. This is a time for myself, for my rejuvenation, for my re-energizing, for my regrounding. And this is a time for my family and being together and being present and being mindful. But oftentimes things spill over. And we have to be very careful to not allow that to happen so much. Of course, suffering is ongoing. There's always someone that needs us. Absolutely. And we should never turn down an opportunity to assist someone through prayer, through positive words. But let us make time and a place for everything. And it is something that most of us were very accustomed to. When we're doing something as simple as eating a meal, we have to watch TV, or we have to have the music on, or we have to have Netflix on, or I have to be looking at my phone. I can't just be in the moment, because being in the moment means I have to face myself. And sometimes we don't even consciously do this. But try it. Sit quietly and eat your meal. You can converse with your partner, with your spouse, with your friend whom you're with, but be present in that moment. And embracing slowness, we're so used to being high paced. Let's go, let's go, let's go. Being productivity, being at its all time high. We live in a capitalistic society, so we want to be as, get as much done as we possibly can. And we work long hours, and we have to learn how to slow down and embrace that calmness. That sometimes by the time we actually slow down, we end up falling asleep because we're working ourselves to death. That's a sign that we need to find more rest for ourselves. Make your health a priority. We do not do that enough. Statistics, research shows us time and time again. It's like we're numb to it, or we're desensitized to it, that we brush it off, perhaps. Heart disease being one of the, top killers of humanity, and we shrug it off. But our diet, our lifestyle, our mental, emotional health, all of that goes into affecting our cardiovascular system, our central nervous system. We're overstressed, we're overworked, and we're not finding time for ourselves. I mean, we live in a society that likes that and accepts it because our bosses want us to work ourselves to death. Except the problem is that once you do drop sick or drop dead, it's not your boss or the company you work for that's going to come running to your aid in support of you. No. Who's it going to be? Most likely your family. The ones who you probably have been neglecting to some degree or not. So, important for us to remember, make yourself a priority. Work will always be there. But the moments you miss out with your children, even if we have to work full-time hours, that's okay. We make the best of what we got. Those few hours after work, let's be present with our kids, or with your dog or your cat, or if you're having a cup of tea with your neighbor or coffee or what have you, or if you're FaceTiming with a loved one, be present in that moment. Give that person your all and allow yourself to really experience it. Schedule in downtime. Recently, we bought this calendar because there's so many activities going on with, kids and Spiritus Center and all these kinds of work activities, and there's so much going on that we wanted to put it on a calendar so we can physically see it. And one of the things I read recently was from Dr. Richard Carlson in one of his books. He wrote that famous series, Don't Sweat the Small Stuff. He has passed away a number of years ago. But there's a book also that he wrote with his wife when he was alive called Don't Sweat the Small Stuff in Love. In one of the chapters, I believe they talk about creating white space on your calendar. This is this scheduling in downtime. Schedule time in to rest. But rest wisely, with purpose, mindfully. Sometimes we feel like we have to be so busy. We have to give our all to this activity or that activity, but we need to have balance. Joanna reminds us in the book Happy Life, where she says, neither so much by land or by sea. We can't be too much in one area and little to nothing in another. It's so important when we are in a family, when we have a family, that we make time for that family. We have responsibilities, yes, professionally, spiritually, in our communities, for those that are suffering and in need. But it seems a bit hypocritical when we don't tend to our own home and allow it to fall apart, but yet we're tending to everybody else's home. Or we allow ourselves to get so sick and ill and out of sync and unbalanced, and we're exhausted and we don't sleep. But we're giving our all to somebody else or other people. It doesn't make sense. Now, when we think about what comes to our mind is Chico Xavier, who would work into the wee hours of the morning, psychographing with his mediumship, serving people. Chico, his whole life was dedicated to serving. He had an adopted son whom he took care of. But his whole purpose in life was that. But I'd say a vast majority, that's not our lives. We often have family members, partners, children, or at the very least, animals, parrots, dogs, cats that we have to care for. We have to feed, we have to nurture, we have to love. Otherwise, we'll come home one day and it's dead. There's a story we heard, and it's in Portuguese, and I don't recall the book. I apologize. I can look this up and share this later. About, it's entitled, I think, the little bichinhos, like the little bugs. And it's a story of this beautiful, beautiful, large tree that's humongous and looks solid in its roots. If you've ever seen trees whose roots go deep within the ground, and you know that that tree is as solid as it's ever going to get. But what happened to that tree? One day, and I'm going to rephrase the story just for we don't have the time, someone leaned on it, and this ginormous 1,000-year-old tree broke in half. And we're wondering, you may wonder, how's that possible? Well, upon further examination, you could see these little bugs that had eaten out and hollowed out the tree. So those little bugs or those little things in our life we don't think is a big deal. We don't take care of, like our health. Like, oh, I can eat this bad food, or I can stay up way too late not taking care of myself. I'm not talking about when we're actually being really productive and assisting someone who's in dire straits. But we're talking about, staying up way too late consistently, not eating well, not exercising, not getting enough good enough sleep, not re-energizing, not recharging. It's like those little bugs that one day, like termites, that one day we look and we think that the house is sturdy, and years down the line, it's falling apart. And we never noticed because we thought, oh, they're just little things. But it's important for us to be mindful. Keep it simple. I think I've heard this phrase probably the most I've ever heard it in the last 10 years of my life. Having a partner who loves this phrase, keep it simple. Keep it simple. Have a positive work-life balance. We don't need extravagant things. We don't need to live in extravagant houses. We don't need to have the best of the best of the best of the clothing. We don't need any of those things to make us happy. Those are fads. Those are illusions. We're not saying it's wrong to get those things, but let us just be aware that we don't need those things. That's not what produces happiness. So, if nothing else, let's have you walk away today making time to have spiritually uplifting rest. Utilizing some of the activities that Joanna referred to, whether it's praying, meditating, reading an uplifting book, positive music, having a good conversation, being mindful of the time that we have and using it wisely. So, dear friends, we thank you so much for listening to us. I'm going to go over to some of the comments, and I think we'll bring back in Leo as well. And as Leo's coming back in, hey, Leo.
Hello, and thanks for this amazing talk, Kirsten. A lot to think about it. I think we need a vacation now to think about this vacation topic,
Right?
or not vacation, or rest topic, right?
Yes,
It's so important.
yes.
You know, I often think about this, right, in the moments of our daily commute, you know, doing the different things that we have to do, and it's like, when am I going to stop and really have a moment for myself? And one of the things that comes to mind is this idea that you share, that the little things, right, that can be a little time of rest, a little time of vacation, or to sit and, you know, read a book. And often, you know, I find myself, you know, reading for the SSB or reading for Gospel at Home, preparing a talk and all those things. And I used to think of, oh, this is, you know, this is work. It is work, but it is at that specific moment that you need to shut off and really think that this is a moment of rest as well, because I'm doing something productive and my body is not active the way that we have to be active for work and everything else. So I think this is a great topic for all of us. I think we are in a position that we work very hard. I mean, we are hardworking people, in whatever profession, whatever, you know, even, you know, for the mothers out there, it's a full-time plus work, right?
Yeah.
You know, for the parents who are home now with this whole thing. So I think this is an amazing topic for us to stop and think. Whether you're, you know, with partners, whether you're, you know, we're talking about the rest with kids and everybody else, and even at work. I mean, you know, I quite often, sometimes it's kind of hard to connect with people at work in a different setting, but it's also something for us to think about it. So again, thank you. And we have a lot of amazing comments. As I was trying to pay attention to you, I was also trying to attend to some of these comments so I can at least know what I'm talking about when when we share here at the end now. But
You
yeah,
know, go ahead. Sorry.
go ahead, go ahead.
No, Leo, I can't help but think about you in this moment, because I can't help but see right behind you is that famous, beautiful wave. And I forget the name. I know it's one of your favorites.
Yes, it's the Great Wave by, I forget his name now. It's a very difficult Japanese. It's a Japanese painter.
Right.
That it actually depicts the Mount Hokashima. Forget now the name of the mountain in the back, but it is a very nice picture that Isabella got me for Christmas, couple years ago. So that's one of my favorites too.
So the reason why I'm bringing this up is because we know you obviously on a personal level, Leo, and we know that surfing is at the heart of what something you like to do. And I'm bringing this as an example to show people that there's nothing wrong with taking time out, and, you know, all of the things that we do to rest. You know, when we talk about spirituality, we always tend to think about, oh, I have to be studying spiritism. Well, spirituality is all about appreciating everything, the beauty of nature, God's creation. So when you're out there surfing the waves and you actually are mindful and just enjoying the beauty of God's creation, of the ocean and the sand and the sun, just how beautiful it is, this opportunity to be connected to that. and how important it is for us that when we're experiencing nature, that we're being fully present in that moment to get the most out of it. Because nature, as we read in Andrea Louise books, has so much healing energy, especially the ocean and forests and things like that. I mean, there's so much enriching and rejuvenizing and recharging of those energy that we can get from nature, that they give so freely to us if we can just connect on a deeply spiritual level. So I wanted to point that out. And I did want to highlight something that Regina shared that I actually read recently as well. That there's this tweet by Leanna Orr, Americans versus Europeans, where there's a European that says, that tweeted, out of offices are like, I will not be working until 18th of September, all emails will be automatically deleted. And in America, it's like, I'm in the hospital, email responses may be delayed up to 30 minutes. Sorry for the inconvenience. If urgent, please reach me in the ER, yada, 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 yada. So that is the culture. And I'll be honest, I found myself doing the same thing. I'm a manager of, nurses. And even during this past week, I took a vacation. And I sent a message to my superiors, my directors, and I said, listen, if you need me, I'm available 24 hours a day, even though I'm taking off, And one boss said, oh, great, wonderful, you're such a team player. And my big boss called me immediately and said to me, absolutely not. Absolutely not. You need to take time for your family, for yourself. We'll be okay. And it was a great reminder, for two things, to know that, or two things, I was like four, two things, that yes, we live in this culture that's very much what Regina was sharing in this tweet, that a lot of people were sharing on social media, that this is the culture that we live in, and we have to be more mindful to not contribute to it. So I just wanted to share that. But Leo, go ahead.
No, it is true. And going back to what you're saying, Kirsten, about the picture, some time ago, I came into the discovery of different religions as well. Not that I wanted to go in depth or anything. And Shinto was actually one of the reasons I even got even more connected with this picture that we were showing here, is this connection that Shintoism has with nature, right? That that the everything is connected with nature, the powers of nature, and we come in contact with the different gods, and it's so rich or I should say, it's so embedded in the Japanese culture. That games, for example, there are games that are in around this idea of nature, how nature is affect our lives, and the idea that you brought in of connecting with ourselves. When we're doing something, whatever sport we're doing, I took a walk of half an hour before we start here, right before I got home from work, and I said, the sun is burning outside and I love the sun. So I went for a walk. Everybody was like, you crazy, it's 99 degrees outside. Well, it's what brings me joy, and that's the moment of rest for me, right? To be connected with nature. And it is so true that sometimes we think that, oh, I'm just going to spend some time, or I'm not being productive. But those are the moments that recharge you, that you can ever, be productive. You can be productive ever more with whatever you have to do in your life. So I think it's important for us to find that, our niche, what really get us connected. And yes, it is true that, going back to these comments and what Regina said, that we have to change the mentality. And I love the quote that you brought at the beginning, by
Dr. Brené Brown.
Yeah, Brené Brown. I mean, it's just so amazing for us to say, enough is enough. Right now, it's time for me to sit down and do this. And I think that you have to be really courageous. So, also, Abby, and I think we had some questions towards the end there.
Leo, but before you read on, I wanted to just highlight something that you said that I think is actually very important. So important, and it's a takeaway from this evening, is the question that you posed: what brings me joy? Mm-hmm. Marie Callender, she has a whole show on I think it's Netflix, about living more simply, and I forget the term because I have pregnancy brain, but I showed her picture. She's of Asian descent, and she has this great book that's out as well. And I'm completely blanking on the name. If anyone is in the chat, you can share the name. I'm sure someone out there knows the name of it. But anyway, the gist of a lot of what she teaches is that we ask ourselves, is this thing that I have that I'm doing, is it bringing me joy? And if it is, great. And if it's not, why are we doing that thing?
Right.
Now, does work bring us joy every single day? No, but we have responsibilities.
Right.
However, of course, there should be a certain level of joy that we take in what we do for a living. But anyway, going on, you're about to share what Abby said?
Yeah, Abby said, having more time now, like others, I've had to slow down. This has given me more time for meditation and walks in nature. Sadly, I've heard others say they are bored. It's up to us. Great talk. Thank you. No FOMO here. I love that you shared that because I had no idea what FOMO was. So at least I know now. I don't have that fear, thank God, and I hope that whenever I come in contact with people that have that fear, I can help them somehow.
Yeah.
So that's a great
Fear of missing out, FOMO.
yeah, fear of
missing
missing out. That's it. Yeah. And then Regina actually made some comments. Come to me, all you who labor and are burdened, and I will give you rest. Matthew chapter 11, verse 25 to 30.
I love that.
Yeah, true. Very true. True. And again, right, this connection with our Master Jesus, connection with religion itself, and ultimately with ourselves. Because we can find faith on someone else's or ideals, or even in what religion brings to us, but truly to how we respond to that. Vacations photo. Wish I could be here. And please stop me if you want to make comments on this. I'm just going to go over because I know we have also some questions a little bit later on. Best vacations are when we have meaningful time with ourselves and others. Disney is not Disney if you just by yourself. You need your loved ones to enjoy it. It is true. Nothing is as enjoyable when you're with someone else, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's funny because a couple of years ago, I remember I came back from Brazil right towards the end of the year when I went there for a week. Unfortunately, it has to be that way because that's the time that I have for to sometimes go to Brazil. It's just a 1 week and that's it. But I remember getting chocolate from somebody. I can't remember who it was now. I think it was my sister-in-law who gave it to me. So, and I knew that she was coming. This was a November, and she was coming in December. So I held the chocolate, and when she got here, I told her, "Now I'll be able to enjoy this because we're gonna eat it together, right?"
Oh.
And she was laughing. She was like, "Oh, nice that I would have eaten." I'm like, "No, I don't think it's the same thing." And Isabella also always make joke of it. How can you hold? How can you not eat it? I'm like, well, you got to make that moment. So. I think it's important what she said. Yeah, it is a beautiful place to be, but if you're there by yourself, you're just not going to have fun. So and then Paula said, I think the
unfamiliarity with true rest is connected for our penchant for doing and thinking. Definitely. I think we're thinking, we're always trying to create, there's a part I think in the gospel that says that we have this incessant desire to be better, to look for something better, to make things better for ourselves and for those around us. So it's this ever existing drive that we all have to just want to do something. And I think that's part of sometimes the issue where we constantly feel like we need to be busy. We don't know how to slow down and just be still. And I love that quote, when they say, be still and know that I am God. And I love that because it reminds me, at least, to know it's important to find stillness and to be connected with the higher power, to really be able to feel and connect with those higher resources that are at our disposal.
True. If there one thing that the Spirit Side of Baltimore, and I believe any Spirit Center, any temple that one may visit, is this ability that these locations, these moments gives to us. Like the three times that we meet, at least during the week, well, four times really, that we have to stop and pay attention. Just the idea of sit down and pay attention to something more elevating than the day-to-day mundane things that we get thrown into. It's just an amazing moment for us to stop and really relax, right? And you have to pay attention. It's not the relaxation that you're gonna go to sleep, but the relaxation of, okay, this is a good moment, and I'm gonna really connect with this. So it is definitely true. So Regina said, we might say to ourselves, wish I could be here, while we ourselves are taking our own photo as a reminder to check whether we are not authentically here in the moment of that photo taking. And then she mentioned mindfulness that you said as well. Human beings, not human doers. So that's a great comment that she made there. Paula then said, Be Here Now by Richard Alpert, aka Ram Dass. Am I pronouncing this right? Dass.
Ram Dass.
Ram Dass, yes. And then Chris, I'm going to bring down to Chris. Lest you on a cruise, I would always stop to look at the ocean from the ship. Then when on the beach and stepping into the ocean, I would just feel the water around me and look around. It is so true, right? To stop and breathe in, what the surroundings, and really digest. Irasema said, after weeks of treating a patient, what would be the best way for family and close friends to rest after the death of that patient? So it's a question.
Yeah, that's a great question and a great thought to bring forward. So I would say, I'm not sure if she was directing this specifically towards healthcare practitioners or just people who take care of other people that are ill. But I would say one of the things we have learned both on a professional and spiritual level is that as you're taking care of someone that is not well, to make sure you're checking in with yourself to recharge your own batteries. Because it's no good if you're spending all the time, all this energy, and you're not making time for yourself, recharging for yourself. Because sometimes we end up at the end of the road with that person and they pass away and we're completely drained because we have not made time for ourselves as well. And we're not saying to neglect someone that is ill, but when we come home, whatever is we can find time for meditation or quiet prayer or reading something that's uplifting, anything that that brings you joy. Like Leo, you're mentioning you took a 30-minute walk and really that just brought you so much joy because you really enjoy and appreciate nature and the sun and just being there in that moment. But if we find ourselves where we are trying to rest or rejuvenate or recuperate from the death of a patient or a loved one that has struck us pretty hard, that's a perfect opportunity to encounter the different parts of ourselves that perhaps up until that point we were not yet that acquainted with. So I would say to that person, if someone came to me and said, well, I was taking care of this person and I felt really disturbed by their passing, I would tell them to go into an inner dialogue with themselves and ask them, well, what parts are showing up for you? What feelings, what emotions are coming up? And dive into that and use it as an opportunity to explore your own self, to see what areas in your life you need to work on. Now, there's that. Then there's the other piece where we have to identify and already know or try to identify or figure out what things recharge us. So do we need to take time out to go for a walk, to take time out for prayer, for meditation, to do some yoga, to go exercise, to make a nice healthy meal and sit down with people that you love and care about? Or maybe that recharging and rest means you're calling a very dear friend who is very positive and uplifting, and so that is a therapeutic moment. So I wouldn't say there's not a black and white answer. There's a ton of gray, and it really depends upon the specifics of that person, who they are, and what their needs are, because all of our needs are very different and we all require different things. So that's a great opportunity for us to do some self-reflection on moments like that.
And Kirsten, if I may add one thing in this context, and I know for someone who is actually treating of a family member who is not well, and if something tragic like that happens, it's even hard to think that we're going to give ourselves the appropriate time. But as you were speaking, and I was contemplating on this idea too, one thing that I noticed is us trying to start something in our lives when something tragic happens or when the body is completely debilitated. My point is this, to cut to the chase, is that even rest, and we're talking about these, the type of rest that we discuss here today, it needs to become a day-to-day thing, right? It needs to become, or at least a couple of days a week where one stops and makes this a habit. There's no way that we're going to be able to connect with our inner selves, with nature, overnight. It's going to take time. So the earlier we do, the better will be for us to, when something like this happens, or when we reach that moment of the week that, okay, I'm stressed out, you can change, you can go into that mode of rest and really enjoy what you like to enjoy. Obviously with respect to yourself. You don't want to do something that you're not going to be respecting yourself and respecting the time of others. But what I'm trying to say is, again, it has to become a habit. It has to become an everyday thing that you're really giving yourself that time.
Yeah, Leo, because of time, I'm going to hop down to
Please do so. Yeah.
one of the questions that Yasko posed. This is one that I found quickly. She says, we older people in the past, we only shared a couple of pictures in a physical album and some special family events. I wonder how the generation born and raised in times of social media, digital pictures, snap selfies can distinguish or be aware that it may not be all real, that they may be caught in a bubble of illusion. How to help ourselves or youngsters with the sense of a parent unfitting life. So that's a loaded question. So there has been much more of a discussion lately in recent years, bringing to light that what people post on social media is not reality. I mean, there's this whole thing, a whole bunch of photos I was going to bring, but because of time and constraints, we didn't. But it's this idea of, reality versus expectations, and what we think life is and then what it really is. And then there's this photo. It's a beautiful photo of this girl. It looks like she's in a field of, like, a wheat field. And then they zoom out of the photo and she's actually next to a dumpster in this little patch of land. And it's like, hashtag perspective, what is real? So, it's important for us to teach our children, to teach our younger generation what is reality, or what is real and what is not. It's important for us, those who have come to that awakening, that when we're sharing things on our social media, that we're also bringing that to light, to remind one another, like, hey, yeah, I'm posting this beautiful photo, but that's not all reality. We go through suffering, we go through hardships and times of trials and expiations. And it's very easy to be caught up in this bubble of illusion of, looking at someone's beautiful photo collage on their social media and thinking, wow, this person travels so much and has all these luxurious things. There's one particular blogger who I won't name the name because it's not worth naming, but she has the most extravagant feed. I no longer follow her, but the most extravagant feed, and Gucci and all kinds of, expensive things. And it's beautiful. She has a professional photographer, professional makeup artist that comes to her home, does her makeup several days during the week, takes photos. So her whole feed. But if you've watched her long enough, she actually suffers from deep emotional issues and is incredibly unhappy. as a person, as she shared with her on her YouTube channel. So although you might look on her social media and look at these beautiful, expensive vacations that she goes on, and it seems marvelous, and she's all dolled up and perfect looking, airbrush is the app to use, but it's not reality. And I think for the most part, a lot of people are coming to understand that. It's important to share with our younger generation, especially the ones that are coming up now that are very young, how much we're exposing them to social media, to our young kids, and then educating them as well. And so in part, that's largely the work of the parents. But in the book Family Constellations by Joanna de Angelis, she talks about the role of teachers, of educators, of aunts, of uncles, of loved ones, and the role that they play in helping to educate these children. Your nieces, your nephews, your neighbors, and just inspiring them. So, just something for us to think about. Looks like we have another question from Alba Morales. People battling with. I'm sorry, Leo. Am I taking your role here?
No, go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead, because I know, we need to cover the questions too.
Yeah. People battling with depression/anxiety sometimes find themselves not wanting to move or do something, just laying down, resting. Is this idleness, illness, or resting? Great question. So from an outsider looking in, it's very easy for someone to judge and say, this person's being idle, this person's being lazy, etc., etc., etc. Only that person in their heart of hearts will really know. So it's important for us to ask ourselves, what am I doing to work on myself? If I know that I have this particular battle, whatever the battle is, whether it's I'm battling, an eating disorder, or if I'm battling overeating, or an addiction, or a mental illness, what are the resources and the support systems I have put into place to utilize when I'm going through hardships? Now, as someone who has experience with those things, I could say it's very easy. I received just a message today from one of my, somebody close to me, saying that, that said, depression is real, but, you need to get up and do something about it. And so, yeah, it's true. We need to make and take active steps. And it is like carrying a weight around on your shoulders. And oftentimes, the people that sometimes surround us don't necessarily understand the illness we may be enduring. That's why it's so important to, have the appropriate support systems. For example, if you have heart problems, you should be seeing a cardiologist, which is a heart doctor. If you're a diabetic, you more than likely at some point in your life are going to see an endocrinologist, which is someone who specializes in the endocrine system. And more than likely, you're going to have some sort of a diabetic nurse educator working with you. You're going to be working with a nutritionist. So you're having all of these support systems. Why? Well, because you can't do it alone. We're meant to work in a society. You're meant to work together, and there's resources out there. So it shouldn't be any different when it comes to our mental health. If we're having issues that we're struggling with, anxiety, depression, or there's a big gamut of different things, we should have a support system in place. We should have resources that are nowadays with the internet and the app store. There's meditation apps. We've shared the one that we use, Insight Timer. It's a great free app. It has podcasts and guided meditation. YouTube has a plethora of things like that. So it's important that we utilize those resources. So there are times where we need to, as a human being, be able to identify within ourselves when I need to take a moment and just be still. We need to know when it's the moment where it's okay. I need to be still, but it's more beneficial if I go for a walk. I know recently I had an experience where I was not feeling well, and my husband, partner, whatever you want to call it, he said to me, "No, let's go for a walk. Let's go walk the track." And really, my desire was to lay down and do nothing. That was my desire.
Mhm.
But I thought, well, this must be my spirit guide talking through him, saying, "Come on, let's get up, let's move." And one of the things that they say is when we're not feeling well, in and out, and actually stretching. There's something in the movement of just like stretching out your muscles in that moment, getting up, going for a walk, that changes our biochemistry. It's amazing. It's a quick way to actually trick your brain. I hate saying the word trick, but it's a way to give yourself a boost. And there's something that we've learned recently, just for those who might be listening or watching that do experience anxiety and things of that nature. Cold immersion. I'm going to say it again. Cold immersion. It sounds like a fancy word. It's nothing other than taking the opportunity to go in and take a cold shower. If you're feeling really overwhelmed and you're very anxious and you want to quickly sort of snap your body back into it so you can process emotions or manage your emotions in that moment, some people go into very cold ice baths, and that helps them, because what it does is that it forces you into deep breathing, and it forces you to be mindful in that moment. It forces you to be in that moment, to be present. So I kind of extended it a little bit. So I know I probably didn't answer, Alba, your question directly, and I purposely didn't want to, because I don't like labeling anybody else as lazy or resting or idle. I think we can only judge ourselves. It's very easy to judge others, but it's a moment of introspection that we need to have an honest conversation with ourselves. So there are a bunch of other comments. Thank you all for sharing your comments. And Marie Kondo, that's the name. Her book, Spark Joy by Marie Kondo. The show on Netflix, The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up. It's also great. And Regina mentions Marie Kondo spent years in a Shinto shrine, and so organizing her method as a spiritual source. So thank you, everyone, for participating, sharing your feedback, and your participation.
Thank you, Kirsten, once more for this amazing talk and this great reminder for all of us. This is the moment that we close. And why not consider this prayer a moment of rest for ourselves as well, to rest our minds, to rest our hearts, and for those who are going through difficult moments in our lives, to say thank you, God. Thank you for this amazing moment, and connect with ourselves. And perhaps if you do have the opportunity to do some of the things that we have mentioned here, Kirsten mentioned very well today, do so. Go for a walk, go for an exercise, go for lay down and really rest, or go read a book. So all of these resources that we have at our disposal for us to take this rest. And why not plan a vacation, but plan a vacation that will be useful as well. So on that note, let us really connect with our dear Creator. You may close your eyes, or you can just take a peek to this amazing picture that we have placed on the screen right now, and connect with our dear Creator. Let us breathe in and out in a way that we find ourselves, as we ask ourselves what we truly want from life, as well as what can we provide to life. Giving thanks for this amazing reminder that we had today with Kirsten, with Joanna de Angelis, all these teachings that we shared, the connections that we made through the comments as well. Praying that each one of us truly connects in a higher level with their mentors, our Master Jesus, and our dear Creator. We ask you, dear Lord, that you provide our dear friends connected with us now the joy of rest, the useful rest that will recharge the physical body and us, evolutionary beings, in this amazing reincarnation here on earth. We pray for those who have departed back to our true nature. We pray for those who are with us going through their tribulation, asking that they receive this moment of rest, hoping that we can meet again soon in the future, rested, well, to give continuation to the different discussions that we'll provide and the teachings that will be shared here in the future. With your guidance, protection, and permission, we thank you, and so be it. And we would like to remind everyone, just to finalize, to meet us again next week as we'll give continuation to the studies of the book Planetary Transition. And we follow one another through our hearts, through our minds, hoping that everyone stays well in this weekend and the week that is about to start soon. Thank you.